What's going on, guys? Welcome to Rob's house. Another Huracan mod today. We are going to be installing a plug and play Apple CarPlay module into the Huracan. So I've done this on a few of my other cars. You guys know my Mustang and my C7 Corvette. They're both 2015s like this Huracan. That was right before the American manufacturers started integrating CarPlay into their systems. So I had to buy the newer modules for those. Similarly with Lamborghini, the newer Huracans do have CarPlay. The newer R8s do have CarPlay. You can see I already slid the seat up some. So we gotta disassemble a good portion of this interior actually today. So one of the components is we need to get this like rear bulkhead cover off. You can see I already took the plastic surround on the CD player. So that whole piece has to come off because we need to get behind the radio unit. We also need to get the console apart so that we can get to some of the wires under here. So I'm going to figure out how to do that stuff and show you guys basically how to take this off. A lot of this stuff, like these Alcantara pieces and these side pieces, are all just clips. So I'll get most of that removed, and then I'll show you guys how to disassemble the rest of the console. There's probably going to be some screws underneath it and stuff. So I have to poke around a little bit, but I'm going to figure it out, and I will report back when I know how to take this apart. Okay guys, I figured a lot of stuff out. Now I did it off camera because there's no guides really on the internet for these cars because not many people have them, and I figured you guys didn't want to watch for 3 hours while I struggle to figure out what's bolted to what's clips, what's not, etc, etc. Okay, so little bit of a mess in here, but I figured some stuff out. So first of all, I unmounted the that's where the CD player sits, and it's not just a CD player, it's your whole, they call it an MMI, a multimedia interface. So that's what, sorry, this is like an absolute mess right now, but that's what this guy is, and it's just 4 bolts that hold it down. Now you can use the CD player removal tool and kind of slide it out of the bracket, or you can just leave it in the bracket and just unbolt the bracket. It's 4 bolts. You get that off. Now the particular kit that I bought has a number of connectors. It's got this big one, which plugs in line into the big one on the MMI. It also has, sorry, you can ignore these yellow ones. These are for extra cameras and stuff. We're not gonna use those. It also has this blue, these 2 blue wires that go, they're color coded on the module, so the white and purple. And this is our LVDS pickup. So what we're gonna do, that blue connector on the MMI there, we're gonna unplug that guy and plug it in line with our new module here. And what that's gonna do is it's going to allow the module to pick up the video feed for the secondary video, basically the picture-in-picture, the thing where you see your media stuff. Now, there's one more component to this that is an absolutely enormous pain in the rear end, and you have to disassemble the entire center console. So the reason is because there's one more plug that I had to find. It's this one. It's this guy. And this is what's going to pick up the actual button controls to allow us to control this properly. Now, the first thing you have to do is remove the side trim pieces. So yeah, it's a mess, but you got to remove the side trim pieces. Now, this is a combination here of clips and T25 Torx screws. Now, it's not that hard, but take your time, because certain pieces are sitting on top of other pieces and blocking some of the bolts. So if you just start trying to rip everything off, you run the risk of breaking things. Now, the first things you're gonna have to take off, on mine, they're color matched, but they're these big orange things here. You pull those off, it's gonna expose, see, there's a bunch of screws in here. So just take your time, expose those screws, undo all of them. The big side trim piece down here, this one that goes along, kind of like along the side all the way to the back, that will come off as well. Once you have the main one off, that one comes off with all clips. Now, the thing is, the surround, which is this guy, this surround piece, right, which basically rides along the edge of the console here, there's a bunch of bolts for that on both sides. Now, I didn't realize I didn't have to take it all the way out. So on the other side, I actually have it still connected all the way up top. All you have to do is get all the bolts off so that you can pull some of the clips out so you can get underneath it. And what you need to do is then remove the center console storage compartment. Then you need to move the gear selector back so that you can get to all of the bolts on the center console, like the infotainment controls and the AC controls, because this is what you need to get off. Okay, so the problem with this thing is it has 6 bolts, and then it has clips on the underside, but it has 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, the top 2 and the bottom 2 are both covered by other things. The top 2 are covered by your switch assembly. This guy, once you have the sides pulled back, this just pops out with clips. So you can just pull that guy out. It's very easy, actually. What's not easy, or what's not obvious, I should say, is how to remove the center console storage compartment. Now, once you get the side pieces off, there are 2 bolts, one here, one on the other side. It's kind of hard to see, but there's 2 bolts on the back, but there's also 2 bolts in the front, and you can't see them until you remove the access, the plastic trim piece. It's a black plastic trim piece. I don't know where I put it. It's in here somewhere, but anyway, it's the black plastic trim piece in there that you would need to remove to get to your transmission override, to put the car in neutral if the car was dead. So anyone who's done that before knows that thing is a pain in the ass to get off without breaking. Now what it is it's a plastic piece that sits right here, and it goes into 3 clips down here. It's really hard to see. Basically, you have to hit it backwards, but you don't want to hit it with anything metal because you can destroy it because it's plastic. So what you do is you take, so this is the piece that I'm talking about. So if you open your center console, you will see this. Now, there are 3 clips, see? So you have to, and it goes in this way. So you have to knock it backward. Now you want to do that without destroying it. So you want to hit right here, and you want to have something plastic up against it. I put it away already, but there's a screwdriver in your Lamborghini provided toolkit. There's a screwdriver, okay? This is a reversible screwdriver. Take the bit out, you don't need it. Use this. So what you do is you put this against the plastic piece, and then take a rubber mallet and just tap this end, and it'll pop it right out, and you won't damage it. That's a good thing to know how to do, because if you ever need to put the car in neutral, you're gonna have to do that. Now, you don't have to disassemble anything to get that part off. That part comes off by itself, but you do wanna make sure that you don't damage it, because then it won't go back in properly. If it doesn't go back in properly, guess what? That's also the piece that your storage lid clicks into. So if you break it and it doesn't sit nice in there, you might have a problem actually closing your center console, and it might rattle. So you don't want that. Once you have that off, it will expose. You can kind of see in here, see how there were 2 screws, right? They're threaded in down there. See that guy? That's where they thread into. So you need to remove those 2 screws, and then that will free up the storage compartment. Okay, so with that out of the way, now we have to move the gear selector back. Now there's 2, you can see there was 2 screws here toward the back. That's easy. What's not obvious is there's another screw in the front. All right, I'm doing this one-handed because I'm holding the light too. See on the front of this gear selector, I have it pulled back right now, so it's not lined up, but you can see, you can see the tab here. It actually threads into this, but that tab has another screw in it. Now, all of these screws, the nice thing about this is all of these screws are basically interchangeable. They're all T25 Torx, and they're all, from what I can tell, identical. So you pull that out, and then you can slide this whole thing back. It's held in by clips, but you don't have to remove it, and the clips will slide. You can't see it, but they have a slot in here for the clip, and it can slide back and forth. All you need to do is slide it back, okay? Once that's done, you pull this guy out. Again, this is our switch assembly here. That just pops right out, okay? See all the clips on the bottom of it? So once you have these guys like kind of freed up, you can just pop this guy out. That's really easy. And then you'll expose all of the screws on this guy. You take all 6 screws out, and then there are a number of clips on the back, as you can see. But it comes off pretty easy. Now, why do we have to remove this thing? It has 2 plugs. It has 2 plugs on the top rear side here, okay? The one Depends on how you're looking at it, but if you're looking at it from the rear, the one to the left, the bigger one, that's the one we want. So that is going to be this guy. I don't know how well you can see it. Shine some, there we go. That is the one that we have to go in line with our module. Okay, that's going to match our module, and that's going to allow our buttons to work. So we are going to have to route the wire from the module. I don't know how hard that's going to be, but we do have to kind of fish it in here, so I'm going to do that off camera. I'm going to get everything plugged in so we can test it and make sure it works, and then I'm going to put the interior back together and I'll show you guys the finished product. But I wanted to give you those tech tips on how to actually get this thing apart, because it's not super obvious and it's very easy to break stuff. If you remember, any of you watch my steering wheel install video, you know that all of this plastic is actually very brittle. Even, you know, you think it's a, it's a Lamborghini, it's a fancy car, okay, yes, but it still has the same brittle, cheap plastic trim pieces that every other car has. This is not, it's not unique to this car, just like every car is like this, right? So you want to be careful to not break clips. You don't want to force anything off because it could have a bolt that's holding it on. I noticed that with the center console storage thing, for example, I had the rear free, but the front was like really not moving. So I was like, okay, there's got to be more bolts here somewhere. Oh, one thing I forgot. The bolt for that gear selector that I was saying there's one in the front here. You can't see that normally. So what you have to do is you have to remove the surround for the ignition switch. It's very easy. There's just clips on the back. It's very simple to remove. These tabs go into these clips that are in there. So just use a trim removal tool and get under there and just kind of pop each one. Be gentle. Obviously, you don't want to break it. And once you get that off, there's a little hole in here, and that's where you can get your torch screwdriver through to get at that bolt so that you can then move the selector back. I forgot to mention that. So once you have all that, it's basically just that one plug. I unplugged both of them just so I could kind of like move this guy around. I unplugged everything on the back, but it's really just that one plug, like I said, this guy that we need to put in line with our controller. So I'm going to just kind of plug everything in and test everything. Assuming that goes well, I'm going to put everything back together and I'll show you guys the finished product and how we can actually use this module. Another nice thing that the wiring harness has is it has a USB port for charging your phone. You know, if you hadn't had a Huracan before, you know, if it was your first one like it is for me, I was a little surprised. There's nowhere to charge your phone in this car. There is no USB port. If you have a newer one, there is, but on a 2015, there is not. So what's nice is that wiring harness, this is a wireless Apple CarPlay module. So it's not needed, but that wiring harness does have a female USB 2.0 style connector so that we can plug our regular phone charging cable effectively into it. So I'm going to also try to run that in an intelligent manner so that I can, you know, make use of that when driving the car. I'm going to plug everything in and test it, but then I'm going to have to unplug everything so that I can actually run those wires. And then I have to put everything back together. So I'll come back and I'll show you guys the finished product with the interior reassembled, and I can show you how to use the module. Guys, one thing I forgot to mention when I was actually, after I got done working on the car, was I did have one snag, which is that I couldn't actually put the whole interior back together with the wiring harness the way that it came. It actually wasn't long enough to span from the MMI all the way up the console to where the media buttons are. That one plug that runs with a separate wire up to the media controls. In between the inline plugs, it has a bunch of wires, but going to the main harness, it actually only has 2 wires in there. So I peeled the loom back and I saw, oh, there's only 2 wires here. So I cut them and I just extended them about like a foot or 2. It was pretty short. I mean, it wouldn't even reach with the MMI turned backwards, where the, you know, instead of having the CD player facing the front of the car, it had the plugs facing the front of the car, and it still didn't want to reach. So that is one thing that I should have mentioned when I was working on it, and it just slipped my mind because I fixed it when I put the whole interior back together, and I forgot to mention it on the video. So I just wanted you guys to know, if you run into that issue, I just got some extra 18 gauge wire that I had laying around and just made an extension of, I think I did about 2 feet, which was a little more. I think I only needed like a foot and a half. So I had a little bit of extra wire that I tied up and hid under the carpet. But, you know, I just soldered it back together and everything worked fine. So it's not a big deal, but if you do run into that issue, you will have to do some basic wiring in the sense that you're going to have to extend those 2 wires. So I just wanted to mention that, and back to the video. All right, guys, excuse my still taking apart dash, but I wanted to show you guys something here. So when you first connect to CarPlay, well, it's not going to show it now, but let me make it full screen here by holding the down arrow. Okay. When you first start up, you have to go on your phone and look in the Bluetooth menu, and this box will pop up. You need to connect to it. There's one other thing you need to do. You need to go into media. Okay, so hit your media button, go into source, top right option. Make sure you have external audio input selected. If you don't, you will see CarPlay, but you won't hear anything. You won't be able to read or respond to your text messages. You won't hear your music, none of that stuff, right? Not ideal. So make sure that you have external audio input selected. Then when you connect to CarPlay, if I hold down menu, it'll go back to CarPlay. If I start a new text message, you can hear Siri asking me who I want to send the text message to. I'm not going to play any music because of copyright. But that's all you need to do to set that up. So now I'm going to clean up this mess, and I'll show you guys what everything looks like put back together. All right, guys, I got everything back together. No issues. All right, we are here in the Huracan. You can see everything is reassembled. I'm going to turn on the... Didn't mean to do that, sorry. Had the foot on the brake. Just wanted to power it on. All right, external audio sources selected. Good, I already did that before. In theory, we should connect to CarPlay. So it's connecting CarPlay. I'm gonna full screen it so we can see what's going on here. There it is. And if I use my, so you use the dial to control it. So you're gonna use the dial down here and then click in to select. If I go over to music here, we have sound, volume knob working correctly. I can mute, can unmute. And this is wireless from my phone. Heck yeah. So it works great. Look at my map. Now, the only like moderately annoying thing about this is you do have to use the dial here. So like the easiest way to do things is going to be to use Siri. Siri, resume playing music. So, I mean, if you want to like play a song or something like that, the only annoying thing is you got to kind of like scroll, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's a little annoying because it's not a touchscreen, but that's just this particular car. They do make retrofit style screens here that you would have like in a newer Huracan, but those are not OEM. They're aftermarket and they run an Android operating system, so I didn't want that. I figured this was good enough. The main thing is I honestly just really wanted my like GPS, because I could listen to music with Bluetooth, but I wanted to be able to take calls, which I could do with Bluetooth, but it doesn't sound as good. And then like, I just wanted to have my GPS up. The cool thing too though is like I can go back to the split screen view here. So if you want to still see your TAC, that's fine. And then, you could still like have your map up here. So if you wanted to have both, you could have both. You can hold the down arrow here and get full screen CarPlay. You can hold the down arrow again and get full screen TAC, and you can hold the down arrow again and get back to both. So it's pretty seamless. It works great. Oh, you know what I haven't tested? Hey! Alright, the USB port for charging my phone does work. So this harness had a USB cable. I just left it kind of hanging out the side for now because my phone doesn't fit in here. So, I'll probably like when I'm driving, just like throw it over here, throw it like in, like there's a compartment under here. That way now I can charge my phone while I drive, and I have my CarPlay, so I have my map and everything. Very happy with all of that overall. Well guys, that's it. That about wraps it up. Honestly, it's a pretty easy install. The main thing is just, it's just time consuming to take that interior apart. It's the same as any car, really. You know, knowing what things are clipped, like knowing the order to take things off and what things are clips and where the screws are located and stuff is really half the battle. Once you do it once, it's gonna be really easy to do it again. I do plan on converting a lot of my interior plastic trim pieces to forged carbon pieces, so I will likely have to do a lot of this again, and I'll show you guys obviously when I do. But yeah, that about wraps it up today on the Huracan. And yeah, awesome. We have CarPlay now. Feels, you know, it's a little weird to have like a, you know, all my American cars have CarPlay, but then like the fancy European one doesn't. I was like, I don't know, I think I need a CarPlay module for this. But honestly, that module, plug and play, seamless. Like I said, the only thing that's not obvious is you do have to set the media source to external input. Make sure you do that. Otherwise, you're gonna be like, what the heck? I can see CarPlay, but like nothing works. You know, the mic doesn't work, the speakers don't work, you know, nothing. You know, you can still connect your phone to Bluetooth for audio, but obviously you want to have it all integrated. So if you get like a phone call, you can, you know, you can answer the phone call through CarPlay. It'll have better audio quality with your music. Be able to use Siri voice commands, that kind of thing. So all that just to say, make sure you set that to external input. I hope the guide was helpful as far as like the interior goes. I know I couldn't show a lot of it on camera because I had to learn it myself. Stay tuned for that interior video when I do a bunch of carbon stuff on the interior, because I will, now that I know how to take it apart, I'll walk you guys through taking it apart. I just couldn't do it today because I didn't know how to take it apart yet, so I had to figure it out. That about wraps it up. As usual, hope this video is helpful, hope this video is entertaining, and I'll see you guys next time.
Reach for the stars, 'cause we're